Common Council meeting of September 6, 2022 to order. Roll call, please.
Alderman Kirkowski is excused. Alderman Lorik.
Here.
Dukenyak. Here. Marshall. Here. Gale.
Here.
Guzikowski.
Here. Everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Catherine, would you start us out?
Certainly.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And that will get us to the approval of minutes of August 16th, 2022. If everybody take a moment to look at it. If there's any discussions, errors, omissions, corrections, please speak up. When you're ready, we'll entertain a motion.
Guzikowski will make a motion to approve the minutes from August 16th, 2022.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Gale.
Aye.
Guzikowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
Aye. And item 4 is under recognition, and today we celebrate the retirement and give accommodation to Anna M. Warvick, retiring executive fire assistant. Catherine, would you please read that in when you're ready?
Certainly. Resolution 12352090622, resolution of commendation to Anna M. Warvick. Whereas Anna M. Warvick began her employment with the City of Oak Creek on October 7th, 1991 as an inspection secretary in the inspection department. And whereas Anna M. Warvick became the fire secretary on January 4th, 1999 for the fire department. And whereas Anna M. Warvick retired from her position as an executive fire assistant on September 2nd, 2022, after a total of 30 years and 10 months of dedicated full-time service to the City of Oak Creek. And whereas during her years of service, Anna M. Warvick has performed her duties admirably, serving the citizens of Oak Creek with dedication and enthusiasm. And whereas Anna M. Warvick often served as the department's main point of contact with the public and other city departments, providing the necessary information and support with excellent customer service skills. And whereas, in addition to her clerical duties, Anna M. Warvick also served as a dispatcher for the department, including a department dispatcher during the 2003 Tax Day Fire, one of the largest fire events in the history of the city. And whereas Anna continuously searched for ways to improve the administrative functions of the department, establishing many processes that have improved the efficiency of department operations. And whereas Anna implemented the department's scheduling software, establishing rules and procedures used within the software to create and track the daily schedule of the department's personnel. And whereas Anna provided administrative support to the department's inspection program, assisting with the implementation of records management software for inspection records, the daily tracking of inspection activities, and the development of a process for the maintenance of emergency contact information. And whereas Anna served in a leadership capacity for several communication projects, including as department's website creator and editor and designer of the department's annual report. And whereas Anna was integral to the continued development of the executive fire assistant position, helping to establish the current job description and aiding with the selection of the department's next executive fire assistant. And now therefore be it resolved that the city's best wishes for good health and happiness be extended to Anna M. Warvick and her family in her retirement years. Be it further resolved that this resolution be spread upon the minutes of this meeting, and that the city clerk is hereby directed to transmit a suitable copy thereof to Anna M. Warvick, passed and adopted the 6th day of September 2022.
Thank you, Catherine. And now we'll have Chief Presick come up and expound on her service to the city.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Mike Kresick, representing the Fire Department. So as stated, Anna served with the city since 1991 and served our fire department since 1999. She initially started as fire secretary, but eventually that position transitioned into the executive administrative assistant position it is today. She served many roles during her time in the department, each one with progressing responsibility. Certainly her role as a member of our administrative team was very valuable to the organization. She had responsibility and implemented many business processes for our department that resulted in increased efficiency and effectiveness for our department. Anna was always searching for a way to do things better, and she often succeeded in finding those opportunities to improve our service to our members and the community. She was a face of our department for many people, especially the public, and she was that go-to person for information requests. She excelled at both of those roles within our organization. She made a positive difference in our department, and she made a positive difference in our community. And certainly I appreciated having the opportunity to have her as a colleague during my time as fire chief. So we wish Anna and her husband Scott the very best as they start the next chapter of their lives. Thanks.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any words? Anybody? No. I was fortunate to be able to attend the ceremony they had at the firehouse for Anna. Chief summed it up really well. Anna was here for over 30 years, and 23 of them representing the fire department. And in that 23 years, the fire service has gone through many changes that 9/11 brought on, everything else, and she always flexed with it. As Chief said, she was an integral part of that department, and she grew with it, and then add on the changes we've seen in the city. So many things have changed. She adapted. It's a well-deserved retirement. What I found very interesting is in the fire service, when you retire, they retire your number. Get your shield number and your whole badge number goes out. Anna was actually assigned a number on a plaque there and was given it. And it was number 23 to represent her 23 years of service there. So it's very fitting when the fire service takes you in when you are not a firefighter, but you're respected to be part of that brother and sisterhood that exists with the fire service. So on behalf of the entire Common Council, myself, and the citizens of Oak Creek, we wish Anna all the best in her retirement years. Thank you. Can we get a motion on that?
Okay, I'll move to approve resolution 12352-090622, a resolution of commendation of Anna Almovarek, retiring executive fire assistant.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall? Aye. Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Lorick?
Aye.
Dukenyak?
Aye.
And item 5 is also resolution recognizing Kurt Wazinski and Gail Sumi, retiring Deputy Director and Communications Director of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities. So Catherine, if you would, please.
Certainly. Resolution 12353090622, resolution in recognition of Kurt Winooski and Gail Sumi. Whereas since 1987, Kurt Winooski has been providing leadership, guidance, and advocacy to benefit the cities and villages of Wisconsin. And whereas since 2011, Gail Sumi has given voice to and enlightened and informed Wisconsin's local leaders through her direction and coordination of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, multiple channels of communication, including editing and production of the municipality. And whereas Mr. Winooski and Ms. Sumi have been thought leaders and trusted advisors for local officials, both elected and appointed. And whereas Kurt Winooski and Gail Sumi have contributed in countless ways to the prosperity and success of local government in Wisconsin. And whereas in addition to their timeless efforts on behalf of municipal government, Kurt Winooski and Gail Sumi have been role models for thousands of local leaders. And whereas Mr. Winooski and Ms. Sumi will be retiring from daily service to local government at the end of the calendar year 2022. Now therefore be it resolved that the City of Oak Creek expresses its profound gratitude to Kurt Winooski and Gail Sumi for their service, and be it further resolved that the Mayor and Common Council of the City of Oak Creek congratulates them both on their careers of leadership and wishes them well in future endeavors. Passed and adopted the 6th day of September 2022.
Thank you, Catherine. I know this is a little bit out of the ordinary to recognize a group that's statewide and a standalone organization, but they are very important, not just to the City of Oak Creek, but statewide. And Andrew, would you like to expound on it just a little bit more?
Sure. Specific to Kurt and Gail at the league, they've been in their positions much before my career. So my whole career, they've been in an advocacy role for local governments in Wisconsin. And both Kurt and Gail were champions of our municipal cause. And we have one lobby in the State House. And you know, we don't get to throw large sums of money at the things that matter to us most. So their advocacy, Kurt specifically, his lobbying really is more challenging and unique than, you know, other types of lobbies that you have in Washington and in Madison. So Kurt and Gail were always very, very quick to respond to any inquiry you might have, very quick to educate, and also very open to being educated, as we leaders here at the very local level are kind of on the front lines. So really, the league is a great organization for cities and villages in the state of Wisconsin, and Kurt and Gail undoubtedly made the league what it is today. So they will definitely be missed in that organization, and personally, many of us have come to know them very well over the years, and they will be missed on a personal level too. So we wish them the best.
Very much so. And the municipal magazine comes out, and city employees get it as well as all the electeds. And that, when you're new elected, it's really invaluable to start to understand some of the terms and rules that go along with things that come up here, because you're just thrown in, and quite frankly, there's not an instruction manual when you get up here right to begin with. But it's a little bit of a roadmap. When you don't understand something, it's a great reference. So we thought it important to recognize them. Anybody on the council familiar with it, want to say anything? Okay, if not, we're going to wish Kurt and Gail a very long and happy retirement. And with that, we'll look for a motion.
I'll move to approve Resolution 12353-090622, a resolution in recognition of Kurt Watinsky and Gail Sumi, retiring Deputy Director of Communications, Director of the League of Wisconsin Municipalities.
Guzekowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye.
And that will get us to our first public hearing of the night, and that is a consideration to rezone to RD1 two-family residential, the properties at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th Street. Catherine, would you read that in the record, please?
Certainly. Public hearing number 1 is to consider a request submitted by Anil Yapuri to rezone to RD1 two-family residential at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th Street. The applicant is Anil Yapuri. Property owner is Rajani Yapuri. Legal description there follows. Date of notice, August 9th, 2022.
Doug?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Doug Seymour. I'm the Director of Community Development for the City of Oak Creek. And the first of two public hearings this evening is on a proposed rezoning of the properties at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th Street. The applicant is requesting, apologies. The applicant is requesting rezoning of these properties from, there's a couple of different zonings there right now. The properties here from B4 highway business and RS2, which is a single family residential zone, to RD1 two-family residential. Previously, the applicant had requested a comprehensive plan amendment that was denied by the commission in January of this year for more intense multifamily mixed-use development. The applicant now is coming back and has worked with staff and is proposing a concept more in sync with the comprehensive plan, which calls for single-family attached, or essentially townhouse development. And the RD1 zoning is the base zoning, which would allow for that type of development. So it's important to note that this is just a rezoning to the base zoning of RD1. And that this is not approving the planning unit development. This is not endorsing any concepts or concept plans that have been submitted in support of this rezoning. Staff has been and will continue to work with the applicant for the submittal of those in anticipation of a PUD, which might be forthcoming. So here is the conceptual development plan again, just for illustrative purposes, which shows a series of townhomes being developed on the west side of the property. The eastern, approximately 2/3 of the property would remain as open space. You can see there's a number of wetland complexes there, and east of that, even though there are no wetlands, there are no plans to develop that property. The proposed development would take access only from 27th Street. and, we're, kind of see how it lays out there. And again, you're not approving this plan, you're approving, or potentially approving the base zoning for RD1. The Plan Commission did review this proposed rezoning to RD1, and at the meeting of July 12th, they did recommend to the council that the proposed rezoning be approved. With that in mind, this is a public hearing. I would ask that anyone who has any questions, comments regarding the proposed rezoning of these properties to RD1, two-family residential, please approach the podium, give your name and address, and once recognized, please proceed to address your comments or questions to the common council. This public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Doug. We will make 3 calls. This will be the first call. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach podium, and as Doug instructed, please give your name and address for the minutes.
Good evening, Council. My name is Alfred Plasek. I live on Hilltop Lane, 2401, which is directly adjoining this particular property. And my first question is, and is this going to be rental units, or is this going to be owner-occupied type housing? Does that even carry into this particular change of
Right
zoning?
now, the zoning would call for both, I believe.
Yeah, the zoning code doesn't make any determination between owner-occupied and single, and non-owner-occupied housing. I mean, it is allowable, even in single-family districts, you're technically allowed to
So you could
rent
see
your
any,
property out. But what it does is it sets a standard for density, number of units, the type of units there. And you're right in that this discussion this evening is about the base zoning. And those information, I'm sure the applicant would be more than happy to address that, but that would be more appropriately discussed when and if the PUD is applied for.
I didn't.
Yeah.
in theory, I guess it could be single family, it could be duplexes, it could be side by side.
So even with the two-family zoning, it could be single-family housing that could also be done?
I believe with that zoning.
It
they
is
could if they
allowable,
chose.
although I can tell you that the concept plan does not call for pure single-family detached housing. I'll be attached.
If he chose to,
Yeah.
it would fit the zone. Second call, anybody wishing to speak?
Hi, I'm Marvin Hunt. I live at 2537 West Hilltop Lane. And my question is that he's going to be a two-story or a side-by-side? And you got that buffer zone in there that you said is going to be go from our adjacent property to the new ones they're putting in. Who is going to take and maintain that buffer in it?
Well,
I've been taking care of the land back there now because it looked like, pardon my English, but it looks like hell.
first off, we're just hearing the zoning on what can be there.
Right.
We talked about with the last speaker, so it's only conceptual. So whether they come in, again, it's allowable to have duplexes, which would be 2-story buildings.
Okay.
Or single family. So this is nothing but conceptual, but again, I'm sure the applicant would be willing to share his thoughts or views. But right now, we're just really looking at the zoning.
Okay.
And the buffer would be taken care of through zoning.
Okay.
Right, and typically that would be through something equivalent to a homeowners association or if it's condos, a condominium association. But when there's common ownership of that larger property, those costs and those responsibilities are dedicated to that association.
Okay. Thank you.
Third and final call, anybody wishing to speak on item number 6?
Yeah, Mark Eberly, Nielsen Madsen Barber, representing the developer here. So I can answer a couple of those questions if you'd like here. So we are looking at a condominium development here. So it will be all owner occupied, and we are looking at a condominium that will encompass the entire property there. So we have a mix of four unit buildings and 2-unit buildings out there. So maintenance of the property will be by a condominium association. So I don't know if I answered all the questions or not.
Conceptually speaking?
Yes.
Single floor, 2 floor?
Yeah, it's two-story, upper, lower, two-story side-by-side units. So first floor garage and living space, upper floor bedrooms with full basements.
I think you covered it.
Yep.
Real quick, Mayor. So just clarify, I got confused there because you said first side by side and then you said 2 stories. So is it 2-story or are they going to be side by side?
So each unit consists of 2 stories, first floor and an upper floor and a basement. And there's a number of 4-unit buildings, so there's 4 of those attached in a row, and a couple 2-unit buildings. So there's a couple attached in a row per the plan there.
So they're 2 stories, then, not side by side.
Correct.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
All right, thank you.
That was the third and final call. Is there anybody else wishing to speak before I close the public hearing? Sure.
Alfred Plasek, 2401 Hilltop Lane, adjacent to this property. And again, this may not be the place to answer this, but I figured I'd ask it. If they develop that area into a condominium association, in that first 600 to 800 feet, the property, I live a little further down, is the condominium association going to then be the owner? Because if the condominium association owns that first 600 or 800 feet, the rest of it is totally landlocked. There's no, so if the landowner now still owns that, there's no way to access it.
The landlord would be held, regardless of who it is, to maintain that property.
And I think you'll see one of the next items on the agenda is a certified survey map, which combines those parcels into one. So, I mean, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, they couldn't.
But you follow what I'm saying, is if.
They couldn't break it off
Is
and
the
do another
condo
development
association gonna own it all?
Correct, and as Doug said, you'll see it in the next iteration if the council sees fit to approve this.
Thank you, council.
Okay. Last shot. And you know something, you guys don't have to take turns at the thing, I'll come in the first call too. Either way, we will now close the public hearing and go on to consideration of that ordinance rezoning those properties at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th from B4 Highway Business to R2 Single Family Residential, RD1 Two Family Residential. Okay, Greg?
Alderman Lorik, 2nd District. Just some notes from planning. This was the second version that was presented at planning. The first version had a long stretch of road behind the residence on Hilltop Lane going back behind all the wetlands. Obviously, this is all concept, but whether or not they had trouble with the wetlands or they listened to feedback at that first meeting, they did change it. They eliminated I believe what was a 3-story potential building on 27th Street, which would have been retail below residential. Made the changes and brought this back to planning, which was recommended for approval.
Thank you for the insight. So we are in consideration of the ordinance. We'd like the motion on the rezoning.
I would just like to mention that when we were discussing this at planning, one of the concerns we had was about the second 2-story and 3 stories. And we did approve, as Alderman Lorik said, at planning the 2-story. But I wasn't in favor of the 2-story or 3-story.
Okay, once again, we're going to consider the ordinance on the rezone in item 7.
Lorik moves to adopt ordinance number 3051, approving a rezone of the properties at 9102, 9120, 9140 South 27th Street from B4 Highway Business and RS2 Single Family Residential to RD1 Two Family Residential.
Dukenyak, 2nd.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
No.
Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Gale.
Aye.
Okay. Motion carries. Next, we have consideration of a resolution approving a certified survey map for the properties at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th Street. Doug?
Sorry, I was out of order on my slide deck here. I apologize. This, as we discussed earlier, this takes the 3 properties that are currently configured and removes those property lines, makes it into one property, meeting the requirements of the RD1 zoning district that you just approved. Plan Commission has reviewed this proposed CSM or minor land division because it's not creating any parcels. It's actually taking 3 parcels, making them into one parcel. And they have recommended approval of the CSM.
Okay. And this kind of going to address your question, Albert. So, questions from the council?
Yeah, Mayor, sorry.
Yep.
I'm not on planning. Question for you, Doug, too. Is that eastern half of that parcel, is that landlocked? Is there any access anywhere?
There is no access, no.
So is it in our interest to eliminate a piece? What is the size of that acreage?
14, a little more than 14 acres.
That's outside the wetlands? Or
No,
including?
that's the entire parcel.
So maybe 7-ish?
Or a third, yeah.
Again, at planning, the essence was to combine the properties. They do show the conceptual plan, and as Greg and Chris alluded to, there was an original version that actually worked through those wetlands to develop the eastern part, but they found it not feasible and came up with this conceptual plan of what they're looking at for condominiums they described.
I'm just looking at that photo there, Doug. Our map, on the east end of Hilltop Road, is there a mapped road there, south or not?
Not in that location, no.
Yeah.
Yep.
No else? Oh, come on up, man. Hang on, you got to be on the microphone, ma'am.
Mary Hunt, 2537 West Hilltop Lane. How are they going to access if there's a fire in the woods?
Well, I can let fire do that, but I'm sure they would go right through the complex and
If
they have
there's no
access
road
to the
back
north or
there.
south. They're coming up to answer that, so
Okay.
just yield the mic for a
Because
minute.
there's no road to go back there.
Yield the mic, they'll explain how they would take care of a brush fire back there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Havey, representing Fire. The question I had is fire access. So currently it's a vacant parcel of wooded land, so it is subject to a wildland fire. So we would deploy a response as a normal wildland fire response to that area because currently there's no access in there anyway. Any other questions?
I think that answered it.
Okay.
So, any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, motion?
I will move to approve resolution 12345-0107192 approving a certified survey map submitted by Anil Yapuri for the properties at 9102, 9120, and 9140 South 27th Street.
Lork seconds.
Roll call?
Alderman Lorik.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Okay. That will get us to item number 9, and once again, a public hearing. Consider a rezone of United Auto Leasing doing business as Prestige Motor to rezone the property at 150 West Ryan Road from B3 Office Professional Business to B4 Highway Business. There would be no change to the floodway or flood fringe, and it is with a conditional use permit for vehicle sales. And this is wholesale. Catherine?
Public hearing number 2 is to consider a request submitted by Abdul Jawad, United Auto Leasing, doing business as Prestige Motors, to rezone the property at 150 West Ryan Road from B3 Office and Professional Business to B4 Highway Business. No change to the FW, Floodway, or FF Flood Fringe districts with a conditional use permit for vehicle sales wholesale. Applicant is Abdul Jawad, United Auto Leasing, doing business as Prestige Motors. Property owner is United Auto Leasing. There follows the legal description. Date of notice is July 27th, 2022.
Thank you. The applicant is requesting that this property at 150 West Ryan Road, the old Educators Credit Union, if you're familiar with that, be rezoned from B3, which is office and professional business, to B4, which is highway business, with a accompanying conditional use permit for vehicle sales wholesale. So both vehicle sales and wholesale uses are conditional uses in the B4 highway business district. Now, the land use plan that was adopted as part of the comprehensive plan does show this area as being appropriate for future commercial development, again, outside of any floodplain or wetland areas, which do exist kind of on the northern part of the property. Per the narrative that was submitted, the proposal includes online wholesale of vehicles with limited in-person transactions at the site. It goes into a little bit about some of the deliveries and the number of employees, the office hours, and the proposal was initially presented to the Plan Commission in a non-binding consultation at their January 11th meeting. And at that point in time, a number of concerns were raised as far as that consulting or consultation process, and that the location, this is from staff's recommendation, kind of comments, the location did not appear to be appropriate for an auto dealership, nor would staff be in a position to recommend approval of such a use, especially given the limited information provided. This is a property that does not currently meet minimum setbacks for pavement and signs. And staff had a concern with an auto dealership of any kind in this location is not appropriate given the existing configuration of the lot, lack of turning movements, and safe and adequate circulation. The proposal nonetheless did move forward to an official application before the Plan Commission. And at the June 14th Plan Commission meeting, the Plan Commission did consider the rezoning and conditional use permit. And many, if not all, of the same concerns did arise and carry over from that consultation. And ultimately, at that meeting, the Plan Commission did, and it was just to be noted, without the benefit of a representative to answer those questions, the Plan Commission voted to recommend against this rezoning to the Common Council. And as we'll kind of go over in a bit, we can kind of outline the reasons for that. The plans that were included are not substantially different than that which was reviewed by the Plan Commission back in June. Just as a note, there's actually two different actions being requested here. The first is a rezoning to B4, and the second is a conditional use permit. And it's very typical that the council will consider a rezoning and conditional use permit as part of the same motion. And it's a little bit tricky in this situation given the fact that the retail B4 zoning-based zoning is supported by the comprehensive plan. It's the conditional use permit that staff and the Plan Commission did have concerns about. So again, although the zoning does substantially comply with the comprehensive plan, it's the conditional use for automotive sales. And staff did not feel, nor did the commission, that the conditional use for auto sales did not instill confidence that the proposed use would not adversely affect the adjacent properties. And when you look at the comprehensive plan further in that, one of the goals of the economic development framework is that, again, it doesn't affect the ability or the surrounding properties and the ability to reuse those properties. And again, given the limited information, staff was not confident that the introduction of an automotive sales use in that location would not impact those properties. Therefore, again, due to that concern, staff did not support, nor did the Plan Commission support that request. So the council has the discretion to approve or not approve the proposed rezone and or the conditional use permit request. And so as we deliberate those, again, recognizing that the proposed zoning is appropriate, we kind of talk about the conditional use permit now. And per our municipal code, it says a conditional use permit may be granted upon finding in the review of the application and all applicable use-specific provisions for Article 4 of the zoning ordinance as well as the following criteria are met. A negative finding or fact on any of the following criteria shall require a negative vote on the application as a whole. And we'll go into that a little bit. Section 170804 sub E, sub 3, sub A says the establishment, maintenance, or operation of the conditional use will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, safety, or general welfare. And again, it was just the lack of information. Staff and the commission didn't feel that at least what we had before met that standard. Section 170804 sub E, sub 3, sub B, the establishment of the conditional use will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. Again, staff felt, the commission agreed that the introduction of automotive sales use into this area, which really doesn't have that right now, would not lend itself to the normal and orderly development of the surrounding properties. Section 170804 sub E, sub 3, sub C talks about adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, parking supply, internal circulation of vehicular, pedestrian, bicycle, and other necessary site improvements. Again, the support materials that were presented in support of the conditional use permit really didn't give the planning commission or staff the sense of the ability to confirm that that would be the case. Section 170502 sub C, sub 2, with respect to loading areas, and this is, again, one of those things that it very well could, but the information that was presented really didn't support nor confirm that. 170502D says adequate space for standing, turning, loading, and unloading services shall be provided in a manner that does not interfere with required off-street parking areas, pedestrian circulation areas, and with public use of streets or alleys. I think one of the concerns raised at the Plan Commission and by staff was that if vehicles were being delivered to the property, how those vehicles would be delivered and where the trucks would turn around and without impacting traffic on Ryan Road. 170502 sub E of the code states that each loading berth shall be located so as to facilitate access to a public street or alley, again, which shall not interfere with other vehicular or pedestrian traffic, and shall not interfere with the function of parking areas. And in no instance shall loading areas rely on backing movements in public rights of way. Again, it wasn't demonstrated that you could deliver to the site without impacting Ryan Road. Again, another one, 170804 sub E, sub 3, sub D, says that measures have been or will be taken to provide adequate ingress and egress and designed to minimize traffic congestion and to ensure public safety and adequate traffic flow, both on-site and on the public streets. Same thing. You just weren't confident that that would have been the case in this situation. So, for those reasons, staff and the commission were unable to really become comfortable that the proposed conditional use would meet the requirements of the code, and where it says, if any one of those situations could not be met, that probably the conditional use should not be approved. I mean, there were questions about several of those in the code, and as such, staff recommended, and the Plan Commission concurred and recommended to the Common Council that the conditional use not be approved. And as a matter of fact, they recommended, to be fair, they recommended that the rezoning and conditional use not be approved. This is a public hearing. We ask that anyone has any questions or comments regarding the proposed rezoning of this property at 150 West Ryan Road and the accompanying request for a conditional use permit for automotive sales wholesale. Please approach the microphone, give your name and your address, proceed to address your questions or comments to the Common Council. This public hearing is now open.
Thank you, Doug. This will be the first call on the public hearing for item 9. Anybody wishing to speak, please approach the podium, name and address. Second call, anybody wishing to speak?
Hello, my name is Ron Eslub. I reside at 3819 North 8th Street in Sheboygan. I represent the owner, the Prestige Motor, and I wanted to be able to give some clarification on some of the questions that came up. Now, this is more, we're not looking
for this to be a pre-owned auto lot. This is a showcase or a showroom, so that the only autos that'll be brought here are ones that have already been reconditioned, prepped, and ready for sale. There's going to be absolutely no detailing, no repairs, and no prepping on the site. With most auto dealerships, they want to maximize the amount of cars that they have in a lot. We're actually trying to minimize it. When you look at the landscaping that we've added to the east side, that's actually taking away all of those parking spaces that are over there. And we're complying with the 10 feet wide city requirements as far as for the landscaping requirements. The maximum amount of vehicles that we would have parked on the site at any one time would be 15. We're looking to utilize the parking spaces that you have to the east for autos, and then we would also have some in the front where we currently have the sign there. The employees and any of the clients would be parked at the rear, and so that the building itself would have more of a traditional office space. It wouldn't look like a car dealership in that respect. There's going to be no truck deliveries whatsoever, so we won't have any impact on the traffic flow coming in off of Ryan Road at all. There's actually, we're looking to have a continuous line of traffic being able to, or not traffic, but traffic flow to be go around the perimeter of the building. So we'd be able to maintain all of our fire egress. Any of the cars that are on site will not be there for more than 90 days. And we were planning on having some exotic vehicles there that would also add some enhancement to the looks of the property. Yeah, I think that's about the gist of it. Is there any questions that I might be able to answer?
Yes, Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. In the Common Council report, it was mentioned that you would be looking to display 4 cars at the front of the building, and it wasn't, again, there wasn't detail as to whether that was going to be inside of the front of the building or actually in front of the physical
It would
building.
be where the current sign is located at. And then we were also with the, when we do submit our plans, the area where we have the portico right now, we were looking to enclose that and maybe have some glass garage doors that would be an additional display, but those wouldn't be parked out in the open area. So, but the total, we have 10 parking spaces off to the side on the east is 10, and then we're hoping that we could park another 4 or 5 in the front, but to have them in a traditional parking space so that it lends to the look to the building, that it's a traditional office space.
I guess the question of that, Doug, or someone on planning, is that allowable by code, or would that be?
If the use as a automotive dealership were to be approved, the conditional use permit could set restrictions on things such as the number and location of vehicles. I think that, certainly speaking on behalf of staff, and I'll let the plan commissioner speak on behalf of the plan commission, but it's the introduction of this type of use into an area that traditionally has not seen more of those automotive type uses and automobile sales type of uses, created some concerns for the future redevelopment of that corridor.
Thank you.
Can we continue on public hearing?
Thank you,
sir. Second call, please. Anybody wishing to speak? Third and final call. I'll close the public hearing and go on to item 10, which is consideration of the rezone of the property at 150 West Ryan Road from B3 office and professional business to B4 highway business with no change to the floodway or the flood fringe with a conditional use permit for vehicle sales. So, Greg, I'll hand the floor to you.
Alderman Lorik, 2nd District. As it's noted in the report, this was presented at planning, and it was a unanimous vote to not support it and concur with staff to not recommend it for approval. However, reading through this and hearing everything that was spoken about, I feel like I do want to support this. I've always hesitated to go against the commissions and staff because they're the ones that do the bulk of the work. It does seem like an appropriate use, only because the business plan that you described sounds very similar to the one that was approved on 13th Street, which is obviously right across from residential, This one's on Ryan Road. I think it would be an appropriate use. I don't know how we would limit it, if we would do that through conditions and restrictions in order to ensure that it doesn't turn into a full-blown car dealership as one might think would be there. But I do have concerns that the meeting was on June 14th. It sounds like all of the staff concerns remain and the plan was not substantially changed. Is there a reason, I guess this is a question for the applicant, is there a reason that all of this wasn't addressed with staff between June 14th and now? Am I correct that all these concerns remain from the June 14th meeting?
You're correct, and I think that the situation was such that the Plan Commission recommended against that, and typically, and not always, in those situations, the applicant will either withdraw or come back with something different, and the applicant chose just to go forward with the public hearing.
So I guess a question for the applicant, why wasn't this?
In talking with our architect, that he felt that the questions we were looking for additional landscape plans, enhancement on the dumpster corral, and that we would be able to answer all these questions here, or that we wanted to be able to see if it was going to be rezoned before we went ahead and did a full-blown architectural rendering of what was needed, but with the intent to make sure that we were going to comply with any codes and requirements with the city.
Rich?
Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. This concept development plan is in my district, 3rd District, so have some comments. There was no feedback from residents, although there aren't many residential addresses in that immediate area or neighborhood. I also received no feedback from neighboring businesses in regard to that rezone request. So with that, I had concerns about the staff's concerns. I mean, why wasn't that information provided to the staff? And in a very lengthy council report, there were probably close to 20 issues that both the Planning Commission and city staff had questions about. Reading further into the report, some of those issues were addressed. I don't know if the staff is completely comfortable with the answers to those, but in my notes, I take it that the major issues were the property configuration, and that it wasn't adequate for safe delivery and circulation of vehicles. That was one of the big ones.
I wouldn't characterize that as the major
Okay.
concern. I think it was a concern.
Okay.
Not knowing what the operational characteristics of the proposed use were going to be. Quite frankly, I think that it was the introduction of automobile sales, and you're right. I mean, if the conditional use permit were to put every single condition on that, for the first 5 years, maybe, for the first whatever period of time, it may be exactly what you bargained for. But traditionally, these types of uses have not aged well.
Okay. Another statement that I had read in the report was staff waiting for a comment or an opinion from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation in regard to possible problems with loading and unloading off of Ryan Road?
No, that was, again, given that we didn't know if there were, if you see a car dealership, you've often seen sometimes they'll have their delivery truck kind of just park out in front and unload cars, which would have been a problem on Ryan Road. I mean, I understand that the applicant's representative has indicated that would not be the case here. And, that could be memorialized as part of a conditional use permit if the council chose to issue that. It's just one of several concerns that were identified.
And I know there were others, I couldn't specifically see if those were addressed or not. Some of the setbacks, I know that there was discussion about the landscaping. I think that addresses one of the concerns. Movement of the sign. Was there specific enough information, Doug, for staff and for planning to be comfortable with?
Again, we're approaching this kind of from a site plan diagnostic, and, I think, should the council find that the request for a conditional use permit is consistent with the economic development framework and the comprehensive plan, and were to approve a conditional use permit, it would be remanded back to the plan commission for the preparation of conditions and restrictions, which would specify things like the number of vehicles, the location of vehicles, the location of the sign, the size of the sign, type of the sign. I think what the plan commission is saying, and based on staff, is that this is not an appropriate use for that property.
Okay. A couple others here. So there was no detailed plans up until this point. Then the applicant is coming to the council for this zoning approval or change and conditional use permit approval. I've not been around long enough to know, isn't this somewhat the opposite of how this process normally works?
No, not at all. No.
Okay.
Yeah,
So this isn't,
I mean, you can think of it in Alderman Dukniak in terms of, you could first come in for a rezoning, right? You rezone it from B3 to B4, and then you could file a separate application for a conditional use permit. We, as just a matter of practice, have always let people apply for the two at the same point in time and have those adjudicated both at the same time.
I think ultimately, Doug is asking whether or not it's normal for someone to come directly to council.
right,
after denial.
yep,
That's their right to do so.
it is, okay.
Yes.
Okay. And I had down that due to the lack of the detail in the current development plan, I'm uncomfortable supporting this, but I guess I want to discuss this a bit further because it sounds as though the applicant has been providing some answers to staff and planning commission concerns. So, I'm open to additional discussions and consideration, but yeah, I still think I would want more discussion about what makes staff comfortable and again, planning commission, isn't that their?
Well, Rich, that's part of the problem. It's not our business to determine
Hang
the
on a
plan.
second.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the applicant's job to work these things out. We don't engineer that here,
Okay.
nor do we do it at planning. They should come with a
But
complete
to
plan.
answer your question, I think that part of staff's recommendation really kind of look forward to what possibly might come and say, I don't know that, again, I'm not speaking for the plan commission. I'm speaking for myself and my limited review as part of a development team, that even if all the conditions were met, it's probably not an appropriate land use there.
When you do the conditional use, as Doug pointed out, is it detriment to general welfare? Will it impede neighbors, the development, the whole thing? You take those into consideration.
Absolutely. If this council decides collectively that the conditional use permit shall be issued, we will take that back and we will draft conditions and restrictions that staff feels address to the best of our ability those concerns. But again, staff does not feel that it's an appropriate land use.
Right, at this point in time, landscaping, none of that means anything. It's just conditional use.
And
Greg?
again, relying on kind of the statutorial restrictions, and especially that section that says the establishment of the conditional use shall not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of the surrounding property for uses permitted in the district. And just knowing, and you mentioned that 13th Street, I think, is one of those. And I think that staff had some very
much
strong
some
concerns about that one as well, although it did get approved. And I think that just, I think history has demonstrated that auto sales lots don't age well. And they do impact, or potentially can impact, the uses of the surrounding properties.
Greg? you got
Just a
something?
quick follow-up. I'm the one that threw out the 13th Street. Is this, I guess, could this be similar with conditions and restrictions to that of the business on 13th Street?
Difficult to compare, given the fact that 13th Street, I think, had 2, if I'm not mistaken, parking spaces for the display of vehicles, and only, it was very limited. I think what's being proposed here is 15 doesn't sound like a lot for a used car lot, or a car lot. But what gave me real pause is that, oh, we like to display 5 right along Ryan Road. That to me seems like a used car lot.
Doug, is it similar to like the Weiss property on 27? That's because that's what I like it as to. Maybe not as many cars though.
You know, it's hard to compare apples to oranges, but I think that that's a good example, Alderman, of how a very simple and probably a very nice proposal ages over time.
Right.
Doug, it's fair to say that the second generation use, once you grant these CUPs and grant zoning changes, are important to consider in the process.
Certainly from staff's perspective, that's the case, yes.
Once they're granted,
Well, I mean, you
Yeah,
can
I
place,
mean-
you can place restrictions on that.
granting them gives great power to the landlord.
It does.
Greg, you still got the floor. Anything?
Oh, thank you.
Lisa, anything?
Yeah, I have a couple questions just regarding, was there a disconnect between staff and the applicant? I'm not understanding why the questions weren't answered. Applicant, do you want to address that with us?
So,
Are we
so
allowed
let-
to do
maybe,
that?
maybe if
Not
I can
yet.
explain a little bit how the process works. When a applicant comes in with a conditional use permit, the first meeting before the planning commission is for a determination of, is this a use we can support? And a lot of times it is yes. And at that point, then the second meeting comes back to the planning commission for the preparation of conditions and restrictions, which establishes those parameters. In this case, the planning commission felt, again, not put any words in their mouth, but this isn't a use that they could support. So that's why they didn't even proceed to a conditions and restrictions stage. And that's why if the council does feel that they want to go contrary to the planning commission's recommendation and approve this conditional use permit, it would need to go back to the planning commission for preparation of conditions and restrictions. So, I mean, even though there's probably not a lot of answers to those specific questions, those likely would have come had the commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit, which they did not.
Again, just to speak on behalf of planning, when this came through, they really looked at the big questions. Will S&P development along Ryan Road, is it detrimental to general welfare? Is this a needy business? And they concluded that it didn't meet that to even move forward with the conditions and restrictions. So there were site challenges and things like that and lack of information that added to that decision going forward. But those were, I think, two of the main factors that swayed that commission for disapproval. Ken?
I think I'm pretty squared away with where I'm sitting on this.
So you're still thinking, we'll take your time. Be satisfied with, make sure you
Yeah,
get it
I
all.
understand.
Chris, anything to add? So just once again, I think Doug summed it up. They came in. The first thing that was considered was really that rezoning is this appropriate use and appropriate business for there. And the commission said no, so they did not go on with conditions and restrictions. Almost the exact same discussion happened here on loading, unloading, and now we learn this information at the last minute. I don't believe we should be making those decisions. If if that's what they wanted to do, you go through staff, we get the report, you hash it out that way. But to do it here on the fly, that's really not, at least no creek style to do that.
And I guess I wouldn't characterize that because there was, it was just a number of factors. I mean, there wasn't one, you can't turn around a truck on the property. I mean, that in and of itself was not the reason that the
But
planning
again,
commission recommended against
when
it.
we're at planning, they never addressed bringing the cars in singly, limiting the number of cars. None of that information existed. So to learn it tonight is a little not fair, I think, to you guys to make a decision going forward. At least it ain't, that's how I feel. Greg?
I agree. I do feel that with the proper conditions and restrictions that a business like this could be successful there, similar to one on 13th Street. However, as you stated, that there's concern that all this wasn't addressed sooner. And that all these questions are still around and it got to this point. I guess a question for Doug, if this isn't supported by the council, is there an opportunity for them to substantially change this plan and come back, or is this done completely?
If the council does not approve the conditional use permit, and again, citing a specific reason as to why they didn't, I mean, there is always an opportunity to resubmit. I mean, I don't know if there's a time period upon which they may not resubmit. I mean, we have to investigate that, but I mean, this does not preclude them from, or anybody else next year from requesting a conditional use permit for either this or for any number of the other conditional uses which are enumerated in the B4 Highway Business Zoning District.
Thank you.
Just to be clear, this is a rezone with a conditional use attached to it.
Right.
So we're doing both of them at the same time. So, council, is there further discussion? Ken?
Rich looks like he's got one more.
Sorry, Rich.
No, and that's okay. So then I would just make the motion and then we vote as a council on that motion.
Correct.
Okay.
For any further discussion, Ken?
Listen, maybe I want to make sure Rich is got it framed right. There has to be, otherwise I can do it.
Lisa, you got anything before we go?
I mean, just making the motion and then allows us to vote.
Yes.
Okay. Just read as. Then I said, then I saw all this.
Make sure I'm heard here. So the question, if just citing the information that staff prepared, just giving options and alternatives, I think to speak a little bit more on it, if it's all right, Alderman Dukniak, is just in terms of it, because the application is for a rezone and a conditional use permit application, the two are together. So the one option would be if there is a motion for denial, it could be a motion that for all of the reasons stated on the record, I move to deny the rezoning of the property at 150 West Ryan Road from B3 Office and Professional Business to B4 Highway Business, no change to Floodway or Flood Fringe districts with a conditional use permit for vehicle sales. Or if there is a motion to approve the proposed request, then it would be a motion to adopt ordinance number 3052 to rezone the property at 150 West Ryan Road from B3 Office and Professional Business to B4 Highway Business, no change to the Floodway or Flood Fringe districts, with a conditional use permit for vehicle sales wholesale.
Before we motion, he'd like to express his opinion. Name and address, please, sir.
Good evening, Council. My name is Abdul Jawad. My address 4009 Calistoga Court, California, Modesto, California. I am the owner of the property. I would like to explain the business model, what I'm trying to do in that property, if that helps. Mainly, it's gonna be online store. I'm gonna try to sell cars online, and this is gonna be nothing but a showroom. I would have 4 or 5 cars, up to 15 cars. Not necessarily gonna be 15 cars on the property. It's just for the customer to take delivery. This is what I'm trying to do, similar to Carvana. That's what's, you know. So no delivery of cars would be on the property. I would have storage where the car's gonna go, gonna get reconned. We're gonna do the safety, detail it, and will be delivered according to, if a customer inquire about a vehicle, wanna test drive the car, then will be driven on site for the customer to test drive it. And if he decide wanna buy it, then we process the paperwork from there.
Okay, thank you for that information. Okay, council, where are we at?
Alderman Lorik wants to make a motion.
Clerk moves to adopt ordinance 3052, an ordinance to rezone the property at 150 West Ryan Road from B3, office and professional business, to B4, highway business, with a conditional use permit for vehicle sales wholesale.
Is there a second? Have no second.
I can second just to complete the. Okay, sounds good.
It's a decision for the council. There can be a second, or if there is no second, then the motion would fail for a lack of a second.
Chris, it's up to you. Say you want a motion.
I'll withdraw.
There is no second. Failed due to a second. Okay. Due to no second. New for me.
It is, I would suggest to the council that you may want to consider
Another
whether
motion,
any further action would be taken on this matter that's on the floor and on the agenda.
Right. Yeah, we'll move to deny the zoning change request and the CUP based upon applicant's failure to meet the requirements of the Oak Creek zoning code as spelled out in the council report, its negative impacts on the neighborhood and lack of economic development and potential.
Let me just ask Melissa, because we already motioned on 10 and had no second. So can we go back like that?
Yeah, we make it.
Yes, it's a new motion that could
Okay.
be moved.
Okay.
So the
So
question would be
motion's on the floor.
if there is a second.
Kuzikowski will second.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
So to be clear, Ken, so you were saying.
I'm moving for a denial.
Denial. Aye.
Marshall.
Aye.
Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorik.
No.
Okay. Moving on to new business, we have an informational on our annual tax increment district, better known as TID. And this is a review presentation, and I believe Max has taken us through that.
So, good evening, Mayor and Common Council, Max Gagan, Assistant City Administrator and Comptroller. So before you tonight is our annual tax increment district review. So what we'll talk about is just an overview and an understanding of what is tax increment financing. We'll talk about something called the 12% test, which is a state statute that governs how much of your community can be within a tax increment district. Talk about the status of Oak Creek's tax increment districts, and then answer any questions the Common Council may have. So first and foremost, you often hear the words TIF and TID. TIF and TID are two very different things. TIF is tax increment financing. So that's the actual economic development tool available to municipalities to expand the property tax base. So that's the actual tax money that comes in, is tax increment financing. Whereas a TID is the geographic location
for where you're collecting those taxes and spending those taxes. So, again, TIF is like the developer grants or the public improvements that are paid for through tax revenue, whereas the TID is the geographic location where we can spend those dollars. And a TID consists of whole units of property assessed for general property tax purposes. So it could, but it does not include railroad right-of-ways, rivers, highways, or wetlands. So just looking at TIDs by the numbers. So as of earlier this year, Wisconsin had 1,371 active districts, and 125 of those are in Milwaukee County. Every city in the county has one, except 2 villages do not. And then as of the beginning of this year, the equalized value of all active TIDs in Wisconsin is about $47 billion. So very significant. And the reason that's so large is that a TID and tax increment financing is really the only meaningful tool we have available as a Wisconsin municipality to engage in economic development. So I also want to just briefly talk about some common misconceptions that creating a TID will increase taxes. That's not necessarily, you can create the geographic boundary, but if a development hasn't occurred, then no taxes would be generated. Second, developers get rich quick scheme. And in order for a project to be assisted through tax increment financing, it has to pass what is called the but-for test, which is but for the public assistance, the project would not move forward. So they typically show what's called a pro forma, which is like the business plan for the development. And they have to identify there's a gap in their financing in order to meet that project. Thirdly, developers do not pay their taxes. The city gives out free handout. Again, another common misconception. So how a tax increment district works is that a development will occur, and that new development generates property taxes. And then in some instances, we may have an agreement with that property owner to then remit a portion of those taxes back to them. So they do pay taxes. There are provisions where we may forgive some of those taxes or provide those back. Usually it's at a certain fixed dollar amount or over a course of time, so that it's not something that lasts in perpetuity and certainly ends when that district closes. And then lastly, the general taxpayer of the city are negatively impacted by or financially from a TID. And what I would say in this regard is I think of a TID or a tax increment financing as more of an investment vehicle. It's really the community and our overlapping taxing jurisdictions saying we're willing to invest in certain parcels or certain types of development, certain public improvements, because they see that in the long run it's to the benefit of the community. So for example, the school district may be looking to add new pupils, so they may be very supportive of investing in residential type development. Again, because you're trying to expand your tax base as well as your student population, that may be a reason why. So, and then when the district closes, all of those taxes collected go back to the other jurisdictions and help provide tax relief at the end of the day. So just understanding the basics of what is tax increment financing. So a property has a base value. The base value is established when that district is opened. And then it has increment value, which is all the value added from the inception of that district moving forward. So a very simple example here is, say we had a property that was worth $0 and someone decided to build a $15 billion or $15 million building on it. The tax revenue would generate about $317,000. The city's portion of that is about $92,000. But if this property were in a tax increment district, the city keeps the full revenue over the course of the life of the district. So you can either provide like a developer grant back to them to incentivize the original development or provide public improvements that serve the site. And then when that district terminates, all of the taxing jurisdictions get the higher tax revenue generated by the development. So what I have on the screen is a very helpful chart that essentially takes what I just spewed out in front of you and kind of conceptualizes it visually. So what you'll see is that there's a green line towards the left side, and that's the creation of a tax increment district. You'll see that the four overlapping jurisdictions here: a municipality, a technical college, school, and a county. And they're all receiving a base amount of taxes, so the base value is what they're receiving. And what you'll see is this large green triangle here, and those are the taxes collected should development occur. So, if we are providing either a developer incentive or public improvements that are encouraging development, you're going to see tax revenue growth. You see new commercial or multifamily type projects generating significant property taxes, and the city collects 100% of that up until this red line, which is when the district terminates. And once that happens, then we distribute that larger tax base amongst all four of those taxing jurisdictions. So again, if you think of this as an investment, the other three taxing jurisdictions are foregoing the property taxes in the green triangle as they're investing in these types of projects, because they see the ultimate benefit at the end of the day: higher tax revenue when that district closes in 15 or 20 years. Just looking at Oak Creek's history, we have a history of early TID closures, as well as generating new tax base. So you'll see we have had 6 closures in our history. All of them had an allowable life of 20 years. All of them closed well before that, the longest being 17 years and the shortest being 6 years. But you can see they were very small districts, so mostly probably single parcel or very small geographic areas. The largest being TID 1, closed with about $134 million, so that is pretty significant, but you can see the others: $5 million, $2 million, $22 million, so on and so forth. Next, just wanted to call the Common Council's attention to our outstanding GO debt, and just provide perspective on how that's funded. And what you'll see is actually most of it's funded through our tax increment districts. You'll see some of it supported through our utility aid payment for the We Energies power plant, as well as some supported by the tax levy. But you'll see, almost 50% of the city's outstanding debt is associated with TID 11, which is Drexel Town Square. So significant public investment has gone into this area, but it is paying dividends. Then you'll see TID 8 has the next largest for the TID districts, and then TID 12. But what I'll note here is that to only have 3% of your debt paid by the tax levy is incredibly low, and probably only a handful of municipalities in the state that have such a low debt burden that falls on the general taxpayers through the tax levy. So very uncommon unless you just do not have GO debt, which those communities are few and far between.
I could just add to that, Mayor, if you don't mind. Just to be very clear, that is not tax increment project that is making up that 3% that's on the general tax levy. That's other debt. So all of the debts that we have in our tax increment districts, and I know this community has been very investment minded the last 10 or 12 years, and there's certainly certain members of the public who don't agree with that philosophy or understand that philosophy, which is fine. You never can educate 100% of the people 100% of the time on what our goals are. However, this, as Max said, and can't go understated, the GO levy, the GO debt that is supported by the general property tax levy, you and I and everyone in this room and all of our neighbors, exceedingly low in the state of Wisconsin. Unless you're debt free, and there's communities out there that are GO debt free, this is about as good as it gets. So all of the investments we've made in our tax increment districts are self-supported by those tax increment districts and not the general taxpayers of the city.
Well, next, as I referenced earlier, we do have what is called the 12% test. So by state statute, no municipality can have more than 12% of their community's value of increment, or 12% of the total equalized value within the municipality as increment. So really, The theory being that if you have too much of your community's value in a TID district, you won't have enough general taxpayer dollars to support your public safety services, parks and recreation, and other services supported by taxes. And what you can see is that based off of our equalized value and the increment we have in our districts, we've exceeded that limit. What state statute says is you can exceed the limit, but that restricts you from creating a new district in the future. So we're really in a position that we need to continue investments in the existing districts. We need to start seeing some of these close out before we can create another one to assist in a new area. So you'll see, and based off of this, there's really only 4 or 5 of these districts that would really move the needle to get back under 12%. So that being 7, 8, 11, 16. So, based off our projections, I don't anticipate we will be under that 12% threshold till well past 2030. So, we're going to need a few of these larger districts to close. So, just looking at the status of our district. So, you can see here's a map that's just showing where they're all located in the community, most of them being on the west side or the central, one on the north side, and then one along. So before I go into each individual district, just wanted to provide a very high-level snapshot of what the value of each district was last year, what it is this year, the difference. And we can talk about the differences on some of the other slides, but you'll see overall growth 14.5%, which is great. That actually beat the community equalized value about 13%. But then you can see not all districts are created equal, and that's because some are built out districts like TID 6, so you see a little bit of a decline there, very small, as well as 10, district 10 is built out, that's master lock, corporate office space, very soft in this real estate environment, and then you'll see TID 14 as well, so, and again, single parcel use, but then you see others, you look at TID 13, 77%, basically doubled, and that's primarily due to our sale of land. So looking at TID number 6, I'll just kind of provide highlights of where the district's at and what we anticipate moving forward. So this district is primarily built out. It's past its expenditure period. It does donate to TID 13, so it does capitalize some of our lakefront investment. Very small fund balance, and this is one we're looking to close later this year or early next year. So if we do that, it would allow us to close it 1 year early. Looking at TID number 7, so TID number 7 encompasses the far western part of the community from the southern border up to Drexel Avenue. May recall this TID district actually had its expenditure period lapse earlier this year, and we did amend it last fall to allow for rehabilitating the streets in the Apple Creek subdivision as well as the construction of the micro park. So we were able to put to good use some of the excess tax increment for projects needed in that area. And additionally, this district has really seen a significant increase in its tax increment in the last 3 to 4 years. So we've had some development, specifically the Seasons Orchard Hills in that area. And this district does support debt that paid for the Drexel Avenue interchange, as well as improvements to the Drexel Avenue 27th Street intersection. And just 3 years ago, this district did not generate enough tax revenue to even make that debt service payment. We're levying the general taxpayers. This district now can support those 2 debt pieces, and given the increase in value we just saw this year, we should be able to close this district in 2025. So we went from 2 years ago to not affording our debt to now being able to close it 2 years early. So again, I think that's a great news story for this community. TID number 8 is our Oakview Business Park. This district was created in 2009. It terminates, its mandatory termination date is in 2029. And you'll see its increment, about $129 million of value created, which is great. It does have some outstanding debt. That significant increment really been created since 2018 as those parcels build out in the business park. And again, this was one where, the tax increment has really been beating our projections. So we had excess increment here. And again, wanted to put it to good use. So last fall, we amended project plans, authorized the purchase of the hard corner of Howell and Oakwood, purchase from Wisp Park, and then a partnership to purchase the Morja Farmstead south of that. So being able to use that excess tax increment, levy it into potentially purchase of 25-acre parcel in total or whatever, as well as to donate up to $6.8 million to the lakefront. So again, overperforming district, let's put it to good use. Certainly giving us more land as well as lakefront investment. TID number 10 is our master lock district. And this district has some remaining acreage. We do have a mandatory termination in 2030. We do have an agreement with Master Lock that's outstanding. That should go for another 5 or 6 years. And we do have this one as a donor to the lakefront as well. Also very healthy and is able to provide assistance to the lakefront. Makes it about $3.6 million. So TID number 11 is Drexel Town Square. So you'll see creation date of 2012. You can see remaining acres about 9.6. Most of the remaining acres are this site right here, and then this small site here, and then site adjacent to Drexel Avenue. I've created $220 million in value, so significant for the community. Doing really quick math, it's like 5%. A couple percent of the community's value just area. You can see though it does have that large outstanding debt, so $42 million. A lot of active agreements here, incentives for the hospital, multifamily complexes as well. And again, this district has really turned around in the last few years. We were in a position 2 or 3 years ago, not sure how do we afford all this debt. The development activity was coming really slow, and now we're seeing that we should break even in the last year, and we might actually be able to close it a year early. It really depends on how the long-term market progresses, but multifamily product is still really strong. Saw some pretty significant increases in values there. So if that holds, this district should TID number 12, called the Ikea District, but it does encompass the Ikea parcel as well as the hotel and apartment complex on the west side of the interstate, and then on the east side, Hub 13, Milwaukee Yard, and some of the other products. So we have 4 active agreements. We do have some outstanding debt. Most of our agreements are municipal revenue obligations, so it's a pay-as-you-go. So as they build it, we remit taxes back, so not money up front. And one of the things we saw in this district is, many of the projects we're anticipating values for exceeded those pretty significantly. So, for example, we had the Milwaukee Yard project pegged at one figure, and it was probably worth 50% more than that. So, what we're seeing is that there's quite a bit of excess increment in this district, especially because some of these revenue obligations haven't kicked in, and this is going to be a district that, especially in the short term, can support public improvements, whether that be some of the conceptual plans for the south of Ikea or Gateway, but certainly is generating very sufficient excess increment to support public improvements. TID number 13 is our lakefront district. This one was established in 2017. And you can see encompasses Bender Park, Lake Vista Park, and then parcels to the north. This district does have increment about $5 million now, so it's really picked up. A lot of that's the value from the land sale to Lakeshore Commons. We do have one active agreement with F Street Group, but where this district is going to have significant public investment in probably the next 10 years. And we've put it in a position of success in that we can donate about $22 million from the other districts to help service this debt. So usually what you see with the TID districts is that you either have to go negative to make the public investment and then build it out over time, or you have to wait for development to occur to generate increment to then pay the debt service. Whereas we're very fortunate in that the success of some of our other districts really will allow us to capitalize investments in this district right away, which is something that I know a year or two ago we didn't think we had an answer for. How do you pay for a $10 million buffer abutment? And we have a solution. TID number 14, 6th Street and Rawson Avenue. Is a single parcel district. This was had some environmental challenges on this parcel. You can see it's about $8 million in increment. We have one outstanding agreement. Some of it was upfront debt, others is a pay-go. But I think really the win for the community here is that it's no longer environmental liability. Being put to productive use. I believe there is some vacancies, so we could see that value go up if that's that full build out, as well as full rental. But otherwise, I think a very good news story for the community. TID number 15, so just across the street, which is the couple shopping centers with the Aldi, about $5.5 million in value. We do have one outstanding agreement as well. That should carry forward for the next 10 or so years to pay off the agreement. So again, this one's really in a position we just got to wait, collect the revenue, remit back taxes. And lastly, TID number 16, which is our Ryan Business Park, which encompasses the Amazon distribution facility. So we do have the two active agreements related to the Amazon development. You'll see a little bit of outstanding debt. You see some small fund balance. So this, we do have about a $20 million MRO, revenue obligation, to the Amazon development, and that was for all the public infrastructure on 13, as well as Ryan Road and then the interstate to support it. But based off the tax revenue, generating about $4 million a year. So we anticipate with interest being able to pay that off by about 2027, 2028. This district was also modified to have a $12 million donation to the lake, as well as there's other considerations to be had in the future, given the significant increment. And this had a mandatory term date of 2020 or 2038, and even with kind of those add-ons, with the $12 million to the lake, still looking like it can close in 2030 or 2031. So still meeting the needs of the project plan, still meeting the needs of the taxpayers, closing it early, providing tax relief, but trying to leverage those dollars and put it to use at our lakefront. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Max, anybody? Andrew?
Of course, I don't have a question for Max, but thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to remind council and the public why we do this presentation. We certainly know the council members and the mayor understand the basics of TIF 101, the difference between a TID and a TIF, and all of the kind of the first few slides that Max went through. But a few years ago when we minted our first strategic action plan, it was very, very important for the Common Council at that time, and I know the Common Council now, to really demonstrate the transparency that we desire to demonstrate to the public with regards to the use of our tax increment financing tool. As Max said, this is the only and it's appreciably the only meaningful tool that local governments in Wisconsin have to determine their own destiny when it comes to their economic development platform. Tax increment is very misunderstood at times. Typically, you see the headline in the newspaper, and we have great partners in the media. That's nothing to say about them and their reporting, but they usually put in the nature of the project, the cool thing that's coming, and then the public assistance. And oftentimes, folks think that those investments are their general taxpayer dollars when they write a check every year for the city of Oak Creek for their full complement of their property taxes, of which we only keep about 29%. Let's slide that in there too. So we, as a group, endeavor every year to provide this presentation to give the Common Council the state of affairs as it relates to the finances of our districts. More importantly, just to demonstrate that we are unashamed in our use of our only tool to control the destiny of economic development in our community, to drive investments, to leverage our future in a very, very positive way. And again, there's a lot of discussion in the community about all of the investments that we make using this tool. And that pie chart, I'll go back to that pie chart that says all of those tax increment districts are self-sustaining. Max provided a very much more detailed financial presentation to the Personnel and Finance Committee members that goes through each of our cash flows and pro formas for these districts, all extremely, extremely healthy. So we will continue the use of tax increment financing as it's our only game in town. But if you look at our history with employing this tool or deploying this tool, very responsible, very strategic, and things like Drexel Town Square do not happen without tax increment finance. Things like the lakefront do not happen without tax increment finance. And I think that if you look at those outcomes, and that informs the Common Council, who are charged with representing the public and making the decisions about those investments, the outcomes speak volumes to our use of this tool. So along with Max, I'd be happy to answer any questions. And growth is important to our community. A few of our staff, along with myself, kind of co-wrote an article that you'll be seeing in the Current coming up about kind of levy limits and how net new construction informs levy limits and the reasons why we, as a policy matter, Seven, choose to grow this community in a very strategic and visionary way. So look for that in the upcoming Current.
Thank you, Andrew. Questions, comments, council? Max, this was really a great presentation. You sum it up and you make it so easy to understand. I just want to go back to the one slide on common misconceptions. And it was a statement you said, it's really not in there. It says developers do not pay taxes. You explained how that goes, that they're not giving out free money. And you said some of the taxes can go back to them. We don't give them back because they're nice guys or anything like that. They're going back because they're meeting minimum assessed values that are pushing up the increment, everything else going on. Or they could be a payback factor if they fronted the infrastructure cost on something, met minimum assessed values. So just for the public, please don't take it that we give it back to them just because they're nice guys. There's always a built-in trigger on that. If you guys want to expound on that, or if I explained it wrong, but I just want to make clear of that.
Tax abatements are not legal in the state of Wisconsin. We cannot just say you don't need to pay taxes this year, sir or ma'am, for your development. That's not how that works. So you're right, Mayor, in that we may choose to cover a gap in the project pro forma or maybe some public infrastructure that they provided as part of the project that we would have otherwise had to borrow for. We can give developers a municipal revenue obligation, which is really a pay-as-you-go. But one important point to your point, Mayor, is that those are their taxes that they're paying back for their project that otherwise weren't there last year that are now there this year. So they've created those new taxes and they're able to share in them for a period of years. Otherwise, those taxes weren't there in the first place. So it's a net gain for exactly.
Okay. Saying no further discussion, thank you for the informational Do appreciate it. Moving on then, we have item 12, that concerns fire, and it's consideration of a motion to award the construction service contract for the Fire Station 3 dorm remodel project to J.H. Hossinger, Inc. for the fee of $196,544. And we have Chief Kresick with us to explain the entire project.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Mike Kresick, representing the Fire Department. Tonight we are seeking a motion to award the construction services contract for the Fire Station 3 dorm remodel project to J.H. Hassinger in the amount of $196,544. Now, as a little bit of a background and a reminder, we're pursuing a dorm remodel project at station number 3, 22-year-old station. One of the things we learned during the COVID event was with the open dorm concept, there is a safety gap for our personnel in those type of structures. And we're hoping to close that gap with this project and create individual dorm spaces and modernize a 22-year-old facility. The engineering department did advertise and request proposals to be submitted for those construction services. Per your packet, 2 were received, and the recommendation is to award construction services to J.H. Hassinger. Now, obviously, the bid price is substantially higher than the amount that was included in the initial CIP, which was $100,000. Certainly surprising with construction and material costs, but obviously, the responsibility for that underestimate falls on myself as a creator of that CIP. Certainly was unintended. We were surprised by those costs, and I'd be happy to entertain any comments or questions related to that. Thank you.
Chief Alderman Dukniak, 3rd District. My question is, are there other stations that would need to have their dorm areas refit as is being done with number 3?
So Station 1 currently has the private dorm setup, newest station 2015. I think as we go through the budget process, you'll see that we're looking at Station 2, the future of Station 2. That is another open dorm concept, and certainly depending on where the project goes with a potential reconstruction, that would be included in that design.
Other questions for Chief Kresick?
Thank you picking the overages strictly materials or cost of manpower?
You know, I'm not a construction engineer, and certainly I would say that one of the things we've seen the areas of the costs being from some of the work at Station 3 already is our HVAC system. And when you start to build out 7 dorm spaces and a storage space in there, you're making significant modifications to that HVAC system. I would say that would form a substantial amount of that cost. Electrical costs probably are going to run a little bit higher too as we expand our station alerting system. A little bit of an underestimate on my side there, because each dorm space is going to require a separate alerting device. And again, labor costs for each of those components have increased along with materials.
Any other discussion? Okay. Seeing none, motion on 12.
I'll move to award the construction services contract for the Fire Station 3 dorm remodel project to J.H. Hassinger, Inc. for a fee of $196,544.
Marshall seconds.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall? Aye. Gale?
Aye.
Guzekowski?
Aye.
Lorick?
Aye.
Dukniak?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Next, we have Public Works and Utility, and it's consideration of a motion to approve the project award for South Howell Avenue Water Relays to A.W. Oaks and Son in the amount of $2,474,645 and amend the 2022 capital improvement budget by $850,000. And with us, we have Brian Johnston. Welcome, Brian.
Welcome. Hi, good evening. Brian Johnston's Oak Creek Utility. This is a relay of 3,400 feet of 1956 cast iron water main along Howell Avenue from Groveland Avenue to about 500 feet north of Susan. We originally had this project planned about a year ago. Things got pushed back, and because of the Drexel Avenue project happening at the same time, we decided to push this back a little bit more. Our original estimate for the project was 1.9 million, the engineer's estimate on that. Times that we have now, we're at, prices came in at 2.7 million. So it's kind of a hard pill to swallow. I don't see these prices coming down anytime soon for construction work. It is a challenging, complicated project along Howell Avenue, dealing with the DOT requirements that they have for construction along the state highway, and it is going to involve some night work as well with this project. So it is going to be a complicated project. We're going to be getting a lot of calls with traffic control and everybody else trying to drive up and down Howell Avenue. The water main currently is in the median lane. You've probably seen several patches along there. We've had numerous breaks along this in the past. With the redesign, it's going to be moved to the curb lane. So it'll be on the northbound side in the curb lane. In the future, when we do have issues, hopefully that'll get everybody out of the actual travel lane, safer for our guys to do work in the future, and take care of the issues that we have out there currently. So, because of the dollar value on the project, we also have to amend our budget. So we're requesting $850,000 to amend the budget. That'll cover the overage of the bid cost and also costs for inspections. Time materials out there. Any questions?
Rich? Any timeline for that project as for start date and completion date?
We are trying to get this out currently because it's taking 4 to 6 months right now to get valves and hydrants. So if we get this on board now, hopefully by April, we can be ready to go with all materials in stock and able to go out to construction. The goal would be to start in the spring and have this completed before the end of the year, next year, so in 2023 construction.
I mean, are there any traffic plans that are being worked on at all? I recall Milwaukee County was doing some tarring a couple of weeks ago. Holy cow, traffic was backed up from Rawson to almost Pute's Road. It was incredible. So
yeah,
can't even imagine what it's going to be like when this project gets going.
And part of that, why we have some of the night work is because we have to get from the median lane to the curb lane.
Oh.
We have to close down the entire northbound road. I didn't want to be the guy that did that for a couple weeks, so we're going to do that at night and make the contractor come back and forth to do that work. So
thank you.
Brian, you got a good feel for where the overages are in this? Is it materials?
a lot of materials. Yeah.
I can imagine with all this, the funding is coming from the feds. I imagine there's no shortage of municipalities putting stuff in the ground, building things.
Surprisingly, the directional boring cost was $185 per linear foot, which is right about where we've been at. So that cost alone for the 12-inch board line is not that crazy. The rest of the numbers, everything was higher than expected. Breaks down to about $600 per linear foot for the 12-inch and 8-inch water main to be installed. We were estimating it at $350 a foot. So significant cost increase across the board.
So the 350, that's obviously a pretty recent history.
Yes. Yeah, that was 2021 numbers. That's what we were estimating.
So we're just, everyone's being abused by, are they gouging at this point?
I don't think it's gouging. You see from the bids that came in, the next bid was 2.5 million. And
Well, who has an incentive to be bargaining?
Absolutely.
There's no incentive. Lowballing anything.
Yeah. And, you know, they threw numbers close to 5 million at it too.
When do you expect, is this a fall start or
A spring start. Yeah, so it'd be spring of 23 to have that project started once we get all the materials in hand. Along with that, the state is looking at redoing Howell Avenue in 26. So trying to push to get that done before they come in and mill overlay everything and make it look nice again.
We're doing a mill overlay, not a reconstruct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions for Brian? Okay, seeing none, motion on 13.
Dukniak move to approve the project award for the South Howell Avenue Water Relay to A.W. Oaks and Son in the amount of $2,474,645 and amend the 2022 capital improvement budget by $850,000.
Clark seconds.
Sorry, Danny, one question. Max, do we have capacity in the CIP budget for 22 to cover that? How's this? How are we working on that? Yeah, that's through the utility?
Yeah. Utility, yes.
Motion and a second. Roll call, thanks.
Alderman Gales.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Really off.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye.
Thank you.
Good job, Max. Sorry.
Item 14, consideration of a resolution approving the T-Mobile First Amendment to the Sycamore Water Tower Agreement. Looks like we got Mike with us because it's his water tower.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
the city's water tower.
Yep, Mike Sullivan, City's Water and Sewer Utility. Good evening, Mayor, Council. So we'll talk about money coming in for a little bit instead of money going out. We do have cell phone leases on the existing towers. We have a number of them. Occasionally when they renew, it's time to talk to those companies if they want to add equipment to the tower or things like that. Then we can look at the lease and see if we need to bring that up to the market rate. In this case, this lease was relatively low on its rental. Sprint had it, T-Mobile has it now. Sprint had it, that lease actually timed out and expired. That provided some good motivation for T-Mobile to want to come to the table and talk about renewing it, putting on new equipment on this tower. We've gone through all of the structural analysis and all the placement analysis. All of that fits and works well. This lease then brings them up to what we would consider close to our current market rate. They'd be paying $58,000 a year with a 4% escalator, so that number goes up 4% every year. 15-year initial period, which is fairly unusual when it comes to renewed leases, and then there's 3 5-year blocks after that. So they'll be with us guaranteed for 15 years, and after that, for another 15 years.
Questions for Mike? None? Motion.
Clark moves to adopt resolution number 12354-090622. A resolution approving the T-Mobile First Amendment to the Sycamore Water Tower Agreement.
Dukenyak, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
And item 15 is the License Committee and its consideration of a motion to approve the various license requests as listed on the September 6, 2022 License Committee report. So Rich, you want to take it?
I'll take that, Mayor Dan. Yeah, good evening, everybody. So, the License Committee report. Since the last report, license fees in the amount of $750 were collected, and that was for 7 operator license applications, and the granting or an application for a temporary Class B beer license to St. Matthew's Parish, and a Class B wine license to St. Matthew's Parish. Are there any comments, questions, or concerns about those applications? Okay, none. No concerns. So Dukenyak moved to approve the various license requests as listed on the 9/6/22 License Committee report.
Clark seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorick.
Aye.
Dukenyak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
And item 16 is our vendor summary report. That's consideration of a motion to approve the August 30th, 2022 vendor summary report in the amount of $955,415.19. So if you'd all take a look, and if you have any questions, please feel free to speak up to the appropriate party for an answer. We're satisfied that there are no questions. Motion, please.
Marshall moves to approve the August 30th, 2022 vendor summary report in the total of $955,415.19.
Clark seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
And item 17 is consideration of a motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, to discuss the following. A, consider a purchase and sale agreement between the City of Oak Creek and Ryan Business Park LLC for the property located at 9514 South 13th Street. And B, to consider a possible bid for the purchase of state-owned surplus land located at 6706 South 27th Street. President Gale?
Thank you, Mayor. Gail will move to convene in the closed session pursuant to Wisconsin State Statute, Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub B, to discuss the following. A, consider a purchase and sale agreement between the City of Oak Creek and Ryan Business Park LLC for the property located at 9514 South 13th Street. And B, consider a possible bid for the purchase of state-owned surplus land located at 6706 South 27th Street.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderperson Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
We'll now convene into closed session and resume at its conclusion. Okay. We will now consider a motion to reconvene into open session.
Gail moves to reconvene in open session.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye.
And item 19 is consideration of a motion if action is needed to be taken. President Gale.
Thank you, Mayor. Gail will move to authorize the utility manager to bid for the property at 6706 South 27th Street, in amount not to exceed $75,000.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Melissa,
Aye.
you seem angst.
Just
Dukniak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye. The Mayor, on
item B.
item
I'm sorry, item A.
A, sorry. Gail will make a motion to approve the purchase and sale agreement between the City of Oak Creek and Ryan Business Park LLC for the property located at 9514 South 13th Street, authorizing the mayor to sign and the city clerk to attest in executing the agreement and authorizing modifications to the agreement as may be necessary while maintaining the general intent that are approved by the city administrator and city attorney.
Guzekowski, second.
Roll call.
Alderman Lorick.
Aye.
Dukniak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Okay, and that'll lead us to adjournment. Hope everybody enjoyed their Labor Day, and keep in mind, school is starting back up. Be mindful of the school buses and the extra traffic that brings, and particularly the kids that are traveling by foot or bicycle to get to school on approved sidewalks and paths. So, with that, motion to adjourn.
Marshall moves to adjourn.
York seconds.
Roll call.
Alderman Dukniak.
Aye.
Marshall. Aye. Gale.
Aye.
Guzekowski.
Aye.
Lorick.
Aye.
Night, everybody.